At this time, I'm actually going to call to order the Dorchester County Council Water and Sewer Committee meeting. We're running a little bit late on this, kind of the pains of coming back into this building after we did some renovations on it. But there is, you know what, Ms. Holman, I didn't ask, are we good down there?
Yes, oh,
Okay,
absolutely.
we will start with invocation. Ask you to please stand for the invocation. Thank you.
Let's bow our heads. Heavenly Father, thank you for all that you have done for us. Thank you for bringing us to this appointed place at this time, that we may do the will of this county, that we do what is best for the county, Heavenly Father. All may not understand, Heavenly Father, but we as leaders, as visionaries, Heavenly Father, let us make the right decisions. Thank you. We ask this in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Please be seated.
These chairs are better than the ones in St.
Okay, all right. This is just a housekeeping matter here. Again, we're in a committee meeting. We will go into the full council meeting shortly thereafter, but if you were wanting to fill out a card to address council, I understand we may be out, so we will work on getting some very quickly. So just, we'll keep that in mind. But the one item on the agenda for this evening for the committee meeting is request for approval for agreement to release Dorchester County Sewer Service Territory located off Droz Road to Somerville Commissioners of Public Works.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Mr. Ward, you want to speak to this, or?
Long story short, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, we don't have any infrastructure in the area. Somerville does. In exchange for the difference in the amount of the fees, we would allow them to serve this area. The requester is aware of that and ready to proceed.
Thank you. Any other comments? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
7 in favor, none opposed. It is unanimous. One more motion, please.
Mr. Chairman, I motion we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, and all in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
It is unanimous. We're adjourned. Folks, stand by. Is anybody else wishing to address council that didn't fill out a card? You can raise your hand. Let's see. Ladies and gentlemen, finally, at this time, we will call to order the December 6, 2021 meeting of Dorchester County Council. And again, we'll start with the invocation and pledge of allegiance. Ms. Hallman, you can lead us, and please stand. Remain standing for the pledge.
Bow our heads, please. Heavenly Father, as we are nearing the end of this year, we ask that you continue, we thank you for all that you've done for us during these past 12 months, Heavenly Father. It's been a tough year, and Heavenly Father, we thank you for watching over each one of our citizens. We ask that you continue to watch over this council, continue to give them wisdom and courage to do what is best for the county. And also, Heavenly Father, that they be visionaries and lead this county down the road in a positive way for years to come. We also ask that you continue to watch over our first responders, Heavenly Father, and we ask that you continue to watch over this council. We ask this in your Son, Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Ms. Allman. And take a quick point of personal privilege here. And just will say this, you would think after, 7 consecutive times it would get easier to deal with this, but looking down and seeing Mr. Byers' Clemson pen, it just reminds me of the fact that I just can't get over the fact that Dabo really ran the score up this year. He just needed 7 points. Those last 23 points were unnecessary. There, I got it off my chest, so thank you.
You really just needed a safety.
Yes, sir, that's true, but there you go. They scored a touchdown first, duly noted. All right, next on the agenda, request to address council. We will start with Renee Rivers. Ms. Rivers, if you'll please come forward, just identify yourself by name and address. You have 3 minutes. Welcome.
Renee Rivers, 101 Coosamere Road, St. George, South Carolina.
Ms. Rivers, if you don't mind taking your mask down, thank you, just because
Good.
you're being recorded, so we want to hear you. Thank you.
On September 7th, we appeared before you with questions about the Spring Road project, improvements that would allow commercial traffic from the Winding Woods Industrial Park to be diverted through our residential community. As of today, 3 months later, we have not received a response or answers to our questions. As our elected officials, it is your responsibility to work with and represent your constituents in matters that concern us. Mr. Ward, on several occasions, you should have received texts from Councilwoman Hallman inquiring about our answers. On October 1st, Councilman Bailey and Councilwoman Hallman met with members of our community for what we thought was to provide us with those answers. Instead, a representative from Davis and Floyd was present to answer questions about the widening of Spring Road and how it would affect our property. We informed council members and Mr. Danny Dukes, the Davis and Floyd representative, that we were not at the point where we had questions for him. We were concerned with getting our answers from County Council. Another set of questions were given to Mr. Bailey and Ms. Hallman at that meeting. We understand the need for growth and change, and per Mr. Bailey, and I quote, "I want to bring as much industry here as possible," end of quote. We are not opposed to change or growth, but is economic development and financial gains more important than the quality of life of your residents? In that meeting, we also discussed safety concerns, and Mr. Bailey, you promised to get a speed limit sign, and we have not gotten that either. Since we were not getting answers from our elected county officials, we contacted Senator Vernon Stevens, who was able to generate dialogue between DOT and the county. Mr. Ward, your name was mentioned as the person who had the answers. Although conversations were taking place, although none were with the community, we still had no answers to our questions, so Congressman Clyburn's office was contacted. 48 hours later, I was speaking with someone from Clyburn's office. During that conversation, a follow-up email was sent to your assistant, Mr. Ward, to contact me for the 3rd time, and I quote, "The county, Jason Ward, was the person who had all the answers." Mr. Ward, I have not received a response from you or your assistant. As recent as Friday, December 3rd, Mr. Ward, Councilwoman Hallman sent you a text about our answers. It should not take 3 months to simply supply a response. We as residents of Dorchester County are entitled to answers to questions that will significantly impact our quality of life. Councilwoman Hallman, we requested additional information from you and think 2 weeks is sufficient time to get those answers and get the answers to the questions we presented to council on September 7th. We respectfully request all answers be provided in writing by December 20th. Mr. Ward, Councilwoman Hallman, and members of council, we are entitled to answers. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Ellis Leisman.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ellis Leisman. I'm here on behalf of Reed Banks and Banks Construction, and also Mr. Hutch Holzberg, to speak about Agenda Item 11A. As you know, that's the rezoning petition, or I shouldn't say it's a petition, it's a rezoning that's been initiated by council relating to a portion of the Pine Hills Industrial Park. I was at the last meeting and was able to hear a lot of the issues that came up. I believe the issue, the fact that this has been platted as an industrial park, was discussed. That happened in 1972. I didn't hear at that meeting the fact that this property is also subject to restrictive covenants that were filed the same day as the plat being discussed, but I think that several of the council members are aware of that. So there are a set of restrictive covenants indicating that this property that the council is considering rezoning to residential is deed restricted as an industrial park, with a plat that says that it is subject to the restrictive covenants that make the property an industrial park. Y'all all know your county, you know where your jobs get created, you know that that's an engine. That's it, that Highway 78, it's actually a special overlay corridor. It's where Key West Boats is located, it's where Banks Construction has a facility, it's where Scout and a lot of other manufacturers have found their way. The industrial zoning is what it currently has. And I think that all of you know exactly what that zone is about, but I wanted just to take a minute to read from the zoning code that talks about the statement of intent of the industrial zone. To provide for concentrated areas within the county, sufficiently removed from residential development, where the mechanical and chemical transformation of organic or inorganic substances into new products may take place. B, to reserve and protect primary sites suitable for future economic and industrial development. And C, to protect the viability of existing industrial development by ensuring adequate separation and buffering from future residential development. So the rezoning that's before council tonight is asking you to undermine that intent. The same intent that this council in 1996 adopted when it clarified that this zoning should conform to that plat and that the zoning should conform to those restrictive covenants. What we're actually doing tonight, if we do vote this in place, is you aren't clarifying the zoning. You aren't assisting the zoning. You're actually creating a conflict for every one of those lots because the restrictive covenants and the zoning will no longer match. So each lot's going to have to be litigated as to what they are and aren't allowed to do. You have one owner who's asking you to make this change. You have two lot owners who are asking you to not make this change. We have several lot owners that we haven't heard from. So, Councilman Holman, you always give a great invocation every time I come to this, and you say, let's always do the right thing. Let's always make the right decision. I've heard it many times, and I always appreciate it. Every council meeting should start that way. This is an instance where the right decision would be to vote no and to not make a change that's not for the better. It'll create confusion and uncertainty. So I appreciate the time before council. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Reed Banks.
Chairman Hearn and council members, I want to thank you again for the opportunity to stand before you tonight, this evening, and address this issue. I was here last time, and what I asked for was a reconsideration of passing this ordinance. So there are two things that I'd like to address tonight. One is just the mixed use of residential and industrial. I would like to take the opportunity to thank you all. I reached out to everyone on council, and I want to thank the individuals that were able to meet me at our site and look at our company and look at what we do and why it would be problematic to rezone Pine Hill Industrial as residential. As close as 250 feet away would be the first potential home site to what's admittedly a loud operation. And I don't think anybody that visited the site with me, and again, I want to thank those that did, I don't think anybody in good conscience could vote to rezone this residential and have homeowners move into that situation. I have packets. Those packets detailed the conversations and the happenings with North Charleston, and so that was well publicized. And the last thing that we want to do as a company is be adversarial to Dorchester County. We want to be part of the solution. Our company has been, that facility has been part of our company's success. We have serviced Dorchester County. As you all well know, we competitively bid our projects. So the only way we build roads for Dorchester County is to be less expensive than other people. We're able to do that because of that facility. I don't know why we would put that facility in jeopardy. The second thing that I would like to do is I committed to work towards a solution, right? That is a industrial zone piece of property. We believe that there is a potential to develop that as an industrial site. So we have worked diligently since the last council meeting to do just that, to put together a proposal for developing that site as an industrial site. Seaman and Whiteside, on very short notice, did a very nice job of conceptual layout. We've estimated site work. We're in discussions with building contractor who builds these types of buildings to put together this deal. And to think that that could happen in really 2.5 weeks, one of those weeks being Thanksgiving, that's just not going to happen. So we need some more time. But we're working hard to put that together in good faith as we committed to do. So again, I would, Mr. Leisman actually stole my thunder. That was a great invocation, and I just don't think it's the right thing. I don't think anybody in Dorchester County that visited that site with me would believe that it's the right thing to do. So I'd ask you to give our company time to work hard to see if there's a potential to develop that industrial. The other side of the equation, though, residential and industrial don't mix. So I'd ask you please to reconsider that and do the right thing. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Hutch Holzberg.
Hello, thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Council, for seeing me again. I appreciate you listening to me. I'm learning how this whole process works, so I appreciate y'all giving me an opportunity to speak again. I come out here last time and I told you the facts as I knew them. I told you that I had a company there and I bought property to be used as industrial, and that was my intent, and that's what I wanted to do. I told you that I found out about this first reading by one of the other landowners there. Caught me by surprise, did not know what was happening, didn't have any notice, didn't see any posted signs, didn't get any notification at all. Told me that he would put a stop to it, and we wouldn't have to, we would discuss it, we wouldn't have the second reading. And then I find out we have a second reading. No notice, no nothing. How do I know it's there? I've read this paper y'all give again, Pine Hill Acres. That's not where I own my property. I own my property in Pine Hill Industrial Park. So I tell y'all counsel all this, and I get told I'm disingenuous. So once I figure out what disingenuous means, I go back and I want to know what part of that is disingenuous. Told you the facts. And people here, without knowing the other part of the facts, tells me that I'm disingenuous. Well, I'm not. I'm genuine, and I'm serious that I want to run business in Dorchester County. I want to create jobs. I bought that land to create jobs on. So that's what I felt like I needed to say, and that's all I needed to say. And people in the county here, that your jobs would support me because I'm a manufacturer, creating jobs, doing the right thing for the right reason. But I don't understand the game. So here I am to play the game again. So y'all asked me to go back and take a look at what needs to be done. I looked at what's there. I own half the lots that are in there. Most of them are contiguous to me. A lot of them are contiguous to the other parts. Other owner owns a lot of lots in there, and they're contiguous. We can make this an industrial park. He can do his industrial side, I can do my industrial side like I intended to. Little tiny lots, they're side by side. They were intended when they were sold to be able to buy 1, buy 2, buy 5, and a lot of people did. So they can be done industrial. It's big enough for industrial. Should be industrial. It's in our backyard. That's where it should be. I don't know why first off, I don't know why I wasn't told, and I don't know why the sign was put on a road that's knows us enough, none of us travel. So didn't get good notice. And then when I tell you I get good notice, I get called disingenuous. And that might not affect any of y'all, but I've lived my life here in this county to do a good job for this county, and you won't find one person that said I lied or been disingenuous ever. So it might be okay with y'all, but it's not okay with me. So appreciate y'all to reconsider it. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Robbie Robbins.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and members of council. I am here to speak to you concerning item 6B, the Ridgeville Give Ann's Growth Management Plan, as it's called. And I am here on behalf of my client, American Star, owned by Pierce Coughlin of Mount Pleasant, and indirectly for Mr. McClendon and his family, the property owners of the McClendon tract. I wanted to briefly remind each of you where we have been with that particular project over the course of this year. In the spring, the rezoning request was made. Council gave it first reading, raised concerns about infrastructure, and directed us to go deal with the water and sewer department and see if we could come up with a way to service that site, because it is certainly better to do that with sewer than with septic. And we have been diligently working on that plan with Mr. Harper and his staff since the spring. As we moved into the summer, we believe we had a plan to provide both water and sewer, and we were directed by staff and by council to move forward and do a roads analysis, an impact analysis for the roads, which we did and paid a considerable amount of money for. And came to find out that we really didn't need to do a whole lot with the roads. We can easily service this development with the roads that are there, and we are prepared to pay for the improvements that were identified in that analysis. So we come back to council and say we got a plan for water and sewer, we got a plan for the roads, and you give us second reading and direct us to continue our work with Mr. Harper. And in between all of this, we get this growth management plan, which I would ask each and every one of you to halt tonight and not give third reading to, because it is standing in the way of this particular project at the moment. We were led to believe that if we got these matters worked out with Mr. Harper, that we could move forward. We want to move forward. We've got a development that is consistent with the comprehensive plan. There is a disagreement between the planning staff and us as to whether we are, but at your direction, we were instructed at the very last meeting that this was voted on in a majority vote of council to get a text amendment to the comprehensive plan. And I find out for the first time today that staff intends to use this urban growth boundary as a weapon against us for the text amendment. So I would ask each and every one of you to delay any consideration of this urban growth boundary plan until we can all sit down and discuss this. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman,
Thank you. Mr.
I'm
Johnson.
sorry. I got a couple things. Hutch, and I owe this to Reed as well. My comment about disingenuous was the attorney that stood up and made the comment about being blindsided about this, nobody knew about this. And this thing had been discussed for quite some time. But, Mr. Robbins, that's a little bit disingenuous. You're saying that we instructed you. Everybody asked, your client at the time sat in the back and you know, we said, ask the question if you're willing to wait to do this. And, you know, and everybody shook their head and said, yeah, give us some more time. I think we were willing to vote at that point in time at that last meeting until, you and your client made the determination that they may be willing to see what else they could come up with over the next 3 weeks. I think Ms. Holman was the one that made the motion that allowed that. So just to clarify that one section, you make it sound like we told you you had to do that. I think we were willing to vote until you guys kind of said, hey, give us a little bit more time, and we agreed to that. Is that not, did that not, am I forgetting what happened?
I'm not understanding what you're saying because I hadn't gotten past the disingenuous part like Mr. Holzberg has.
Well, so-
I'm not being disingenuous about anything.
Well-
I'm recounting the facts as they have played out over the last 8 months.
I'm talking
And-
about the last meeting very specifically, sir.
The last meeting
The last
was-
meeting very specifically, it sounds like you were telling us that we directed you guys to do this, and I don't know that we directed you. I think that was a request that you guys asked us to allow to go back because the challenge was sewer in this case.
Well,
Is that not?
maybe I didn't use the right terminology.
It could be.
I don't know,
You're an
but I know
attorney,
there was
words
a.
matter, so I mean.
There was a majority vote of council for us to move forward and continue with what we had been doing, which was working with Mr. Harper. And that's what we have done, and that's what we're trying to do. And now this urban growth boundary plan pops up, and all of a sudden it conveniently excludes my client's property from the boundary that is going to be used to argue against the text amendment. That's my point. Whether we were directed, I don't know, but there was a majority vote of council for us to continue doing what we were doing. That was my point. Anybody else?
Thank you, Mr. Robbins. Thank you. Okay, we have a couple of written requests to address council. The first is from Mr. Manny Reyes, P.O. Box 1113, Somerville, South Carolina. No phone number, no address, but comment was the subject matter is public safety concern, West Butternut drag racing. And it says street drag racing on West Butternut needs to be 100% eliminated by the county by installing rubber recycled 5-mile-an-hour speed humps every quarter mile up to Central. Also, trash debris on Butternut are mostly alcohol-related cans and bottles, and that was his comment. And West Butternut is a state road. I'm sure you knew this already. I think he's also implying Orangeburg Road, which is also a state road. So the state is not in the business of installing
Would it be
speed
appropriate
humps.
to forward that to the DOT commissioner?
Yes,
for
we
their
will,
consideration?
oh, wait, no. Okay. But, Mr. Robbins, what's the DOT's policy on putting speed humps on state roads, sir? Not? That would be correct. Okay, all right, thank you. But nonetheless, though, we will at least pass this along to the sheriff. I know at least one resident in that general area that might be concerned about this as well, so, but thank you for that. The second, okay, thank you. All right, the second one, captioned modified exhaust. My name is Ryan Jackson. I live in St. George. I wanted to bring to your attention what I think is an issue. I've been in the area for almost 3 years, living first in Somerville before moving to St. George. I don't know if there is a law or some kind of ordinance, but excuse me, these loud exhausts that some people modify and have on their cars and trucks are very disturbing. There are nights when my family and I are sitting on our porch in our home that the noise is overwhelming. It actually vibrates our home. From what I understand, gosh, excuse me, there is a law that is going to be passed. Goodness gracious, I am sorry. It's 3 meetings in a row. One more time. There's a law that is going to be passed about these vehicles that are squatted in the back. I know what he's talking about. But I did not see any mention of the loud exhausts that are on most of these vehicles. Some of these vehicles go by our house and literally I can hear them 5 minutes after going down the road. As the father of a newborn, it has become a more serious issue for me. At times, it wakes our baby up. The problem is county-wide, so I wanted to start with Dorchester County. Any help with this would be appreciated. I fully understand that some people can't afford to have vehicles running properly but some of these people pay a lot of money to have their vehicles modified modified to make this awful noise. So I appreciate anything you can do. Okay. Reader's Digest version. Okay, and next we have adoption of minutes from the November 15th, 2021 County Council meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
Aye.
It is unanimous. Next, we have public hearing and third reading rezoning request number 843 for County Council to rezone 8.68 acres located at Monac Road and Highway 178 near St. George, TMS numbers 007-0000254-084-085-229 and 013-00-00020 from General Commercial District CG to Agricultural Residential District AR.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second, and, oh, it is a public,
Yeah,
you know what?
I know it's mine.
Sorry,
There it
ahead of
is,
you.
there it is, underlined right there, and Ms. Reinerson is not standing there for nothing, she knew that. So at this time, we'll call the public hearing first before we take any action.
Yep, I'll be very brief. I think this is a pretty straightforward, easy one. We were approached about rezoning out off Monarch Road. Homeowner applied for a building permit. The property is zoned general commercial and has always been used residential, and they were questioning why that was. So the properties out here, if you look at the zoning map, are zoned general commercial. Everything in red is general commercial. Historically, that area has been residential. Back in the late 90s, plans were being developed to bring sewer to this area. It's right by 95 and that interchange there, so they were thinking that it would spur some commercial development. The absence of controls district at the time allowed just about everything. So in order to provide some controls while still allowing for economic growth, they zoned it general commercial. So at this point, now we've amended the AC district to the agricultural residential district, which will bring it more in line with the uses that are there on site. So the one applicant reached out to several of the neighbors, so we actually have 5 applications as part of this. Ms. Holman was working with them to have the council sponsor it. So staff recommends approval. Planning Commission reviewed this request at their November meeting and unanimously recommended approval.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? And again, anyone else? All right. Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. Now, third reading.
So moved.
Thank you, sir.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All right. Hearing none, all in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
It is unanimous. Next, another public hearing and third reading of an ordinance to provide for the issuance and sale of not exceeding $750,000 Dorchester County, South Carolina taxable general obligation bonds, Series 2021, to prescribe the purposes for which the proceeds shall be expended, to provide for the payment thereof, and other matters relating thereto. And this time I will pick up the gavel, and this time we'll call the public hearing to order if anyone wished to speak on this. Folks, we have a lot of public hearings tonight. Okay. Seeing none, close the public hearing. We'll entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
It is again unanimous. Next, another public hearing and third reading of an ordinance to provide for the issuance and sale of not exceeding $6,500,000 Dorchester County, South Carolina general obligation refunding bonds, to prescribe the purposes for which the proceeds shall be expended, to provide for the payment thereof, and other matters relating thereto. Again, we'll call public hearing to order. Does anyone wish to speak on this matter? And again, hearing none, we will close the public hearing and we'll entertain a motion.
So move.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
Again, it is unanimous. Next, another public hearing and third reading of an ordinance to amend Dorchester County Zoning and Land Development Standards Ordinance number 04-13 as previously amended to revise Article 11, Section 11.5.2, quote, area of overlay zone, and a quote, comma, Section 11.5.3, quote, District 1, Section 11.58, subsection C, quote, road connectivity, end of quote, and Section 11.5.8, subsection K, quote, road frontage buffer, end of quote. And the purpose of the amendment is to provide additional clarification regarding the required road frontage buffer along South Carolina Highway 61. At this time, we'll call the public hearing to order. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. This is another, I think, fairly straightforward one. This came out of a discussion after recent events. Staff was discussing with the county attorney this overlay district language, and it was decided that the language describing the actual boundaries of the Ashley River Historic Overlay District weren't comprehensive, weren't complete. I think there was some ambiguity in the language. This ordinance has been amended several times. It has been expanded, and the language didn't quite reflect that in this section. So we thought that we would just, this isn't adding any parcels, this isn't taking away any parcels, this is strictly just making the definition of the boundaries match the actual boundaries. We created exhibits a couple years ago listing TMS numbers. This just mirrors that. Then the second part of it was there was some discussion about the buffer requirement. So the Ashley River Overlay District along Ashley River Road has a 200-foot buffer requirement to protect the scenic highway. What we did is the language in the ordinance was tied to Ashley River Road, and it was felt that it should apply throughout all of Highway 61, regardless of whether it was Ashley River Road or Beach Hill Road. Since first reading of the ordinance, staff was asked to look and make a determination regarding whether the buffer was actually meant to apply throughout Highway 61 or just Ashley River Road. After going through the exercise, it was determined that it should only apply to Ashley River Road, which is the scenic highway, and made a determination to that effect. However, the ordinance had already started receiving first reading, so when we went to Planning Commission, we discussed this with them, and they felt it appropriate to remove the amendments that had been proposed to Section 11.5.8K, which just deals with the buffer. And that's what they voted on. They voted unanimously to recommend approval of that. So what's coming forward to you at this time is to keep the language that was drafted and proposed for the boundaries of the overlay, but to not make the amendments to the buffer section of the ordinance and leave the language reflecting that the buffer will only apply to Ashley River Road.
Thank you. Any questions of that? Okay, does anyone else wish to speak on this issue? Okay, hearing none, we will close the public hearing and again entertain a motion.
So, Mr. Chairman, before, I'll make the motion, but I want to make certain as I look at Mr. Frampton, we're making the motion, the part of this, because we've done first reading and approved a portion of this.
It would be a motion to amend the ordinance to remove, I believe it is the amendment reflected in 11.5.8C. K, I'm sorry, I was thinking K and said C. Remove the amendment to section 11.5.8K. The rest of the amendments would remain. I mean, the rest of the motion, or the ordinance would remain.
So, but we're still moving to amend.
What was given first reading, yes, sir.
A motion to amend what was given first reading by removing 11.5.8 subsection K.
That's correct.
And approving the remainder of that.
Second reading for the remainder of the ordinance.
That is my motion.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a couple of seconds. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
It is unanimous. Another public hearing. This is a public hearing and second reading of an ordinance to repeal and replace Dorchester County Business License Ordinance Number 20-16 to comply with the provisions of Act 176 of 2020. The purpose of this ordinance is to repeal the current business license ordinance, which was proactively revised prior to receiving formal guidance on Act 176, in order to adopt the model ordinance provided by the South Carolina Association of Counties in October of 2021. And at this time, I will call public hearing to order. Does anybody wish to speak on this? Seeing a trend here. All right, this time we will close the public hearing and entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
It is unanimous. And again, another public hearing and second reading of an ordinance to provide for the creation and establishment of 7 single-member election districts for the election of a governing body of Dorchester County as provided for in South Carolina Code annotated Section 4-9-90. When adopted, this ordinance will replace Dorchester County Ordinance Number 11-14 and provide for new county council districts based upon the 2020 decennial census as required by South Carolina Code annotated Section 4-9-90. And I will call the public hearing I will open the public hearing, easier for me to say. And folks, this is pertaining to redistricting. This is what we're talking about here. So does anybody wish to speak about our once every 10-year redistricting? Okay. All right, hearing none, we'll close the public hearing. And
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
do we have a motion on the floor yet?
not yet, sir. We need a
Speak
motion.
after the motion is made.
Okay, would somebody like to make a motion?
So moved.
Okay.
Second.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. We're in discussion. Mr. Bailey?
Thank you. Aaron, pass your water.
Yes, sir. Right there with you.
Mr. Chairman, thank you so much for giving me an opportunity to speak. I'd like to make a couple of comments, and everybody just rest easy. I'll be all right. I'm not excited. Sitting right next to Ms. Hallman here, I can remember when we talked about redistricting starting. And I told Ms. Harriet, Councilwoman Hallman, that I felt very comfortable that we would probably end up with a council seat on the western end of the county because of the population growth in the Somerville area. And since then, I have not changed my opinion at all. I've traveled, I've been here 52 years in the St. George area. I've been all over it. We're not different from the people in Somerville, but we have different, I guess you would say, increments, neighborhoods, and this type of stuff. So I'm asking our council members tonight if they would, before we give third reading, to reconsider taking the western end of the county, that's from the Full Hall Swamp back, and putting it together in one district and go from there and get the multitude of people out and whatever we need to make a district necessary. And that's my thought, and I appreciate Joe's consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Bailey. Any other discussion? Anyone?
Just a question on that.
Sure.
With Mr. Bailey's consideration is that if we go ahead and vote to move this forward for second reading as is, we would address that potentially. We can't fix that right here tonight, but we would need to address those potential changes to evaluate that objectively after this evening. But go ahead and
We probably could do it before third reading.
Yes.
We go time to do it.
go ahead and do second reading as is.
I think we can certainly do that, and we can make any changes between second and third reading. I think what we run the risk of is potentially having to resubmit to Revenue and Fiscal Affairs. So that would be I think the one thing that could happen as a result of doing that. But so I guess what we're saying is it probably puts the October 13th third reading in October.
Go back in time,
All right,
Mr. Chairman.
drink
Go
some
back-
water.
Thank you, sir. I have on my mind October 18th when this was rolled out. Sorry, December 13th meeting in
Mr. Chairman,
jeopardy.
and Mr. Mr. Frampton, is it possible, obviously, we scheduled an additional special call meeting ahead of time specifically to try to get this in before the first of the year. Is it possible even to, I mean, can we wait until the 13th if we don't have a decision at that point in time, either from Frank or somebody else in Columbia to schedule an additional an additional meeting?
I guess what
I'm
you're
running
asking
everybody
is,
into,
what's the notice cutoff
Yeah.
to do that?
The requirement is not less than 7 days
oh, okay.
between second and third readings.
Okay.
And I take that time frame very seriously, so not just the number of days, I also count the number of minutes to the hour. I was going to pull up Greenwich Mean Time as to when second reading was given, so that third reading would be at least 7 full days after second reading.
But potentially, again, and I'm stretching this into like the 27th, that would give you almost, well, at worst case scenario, 13 full days between.
Yeah, no further public hearings will be required.
Okay, there you go, thank you.
Right.
So 7 days is the easy answer.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, and we were actually fulfilling our public hearing requirement tonight. We had the blessings of Revenue and Fiscal Affairs, but I think this change, we're still good with the public hearing, but it will necessitate sending it back for potential evaluation. So, and I will say this, ladies and gentlemen, I will probably be joining you by telephone. If it's after the 23rd of December, I'll be enjoying my second knee replacements. So on December 23rd, folks, what was I thinking? But anyway, yeah.
I may be having an SI fusion the same day, so maybe we'll see each other in recovery.
What's the expected turnaround time from the state on that? I mean, if we got them something this week, is that they can evaluate that in 24 hours, or is that gonna be a 2-week process, or? I mean, I know Columbia is usually really fast with things,
That, I think, is a
except
tough.
for the Carolina offense. Oh, I didn't
Yep.
say that, I'm sorry.
It's a, I didn't hear that. This is I mean, that's a tough question. I mean, Mr. Ward, if you want to entertain that one?
Yeah, I haven't broached that subject. Mr. Rainwater, I can do that first thing tomorrow or before I leave the office tonight to see if he gives us a response in terms of what his staff's turnaround would be after the plan is received.
And I guess my follow-up to that is, we obviously would want some time to work through this. If next Monday didn't work, are we able to reschedule for next Thursday or something if we got a decent turnaround time frame to do that? Because if we're talking about giving second reading tonight, we would be giving third reading to a different map. Is that what we're looking at, Mr. Chairman?
No, necessarily.
Yes.
We wouldn't have to do this on a Monday night specifically.
Right,
This could
no,
be
we
the
don't.
21st.
It's got to be 7
Trying
days.
trying to beat you guys so you could be here. I know you're looking forward to that.
So, I mean, long story short, yes, I think it's going to certainly make changes to the map, and it'll need to be reviewed. So I guess is the question, let's see, when would we notice, have we already given notice for the meeting on the 13th? I know we announced it.
John's-
That was done as an amendment to council's schedule, so that is really not a special call meeting now, it's a regularly scheduled meeting.
Okay.
That's right.
And there are a number of other items on that agenda besides just redistricting, as always happens.
I do think this is important for us to do to keep, I think Mr. Bailey's making a decision that it's important for the county to maintain communities of like interest, and the map we currently have now, it's two different, in his district is actually two different ends of the county. And I think this is critical to keep the communities of like interest together.
Mr. Chairman, just to add to that, I know everybody out here, if you haven't looked at this map, and if you've ever taken a chance to look at, this is all done on census blocks. This is not as easy as us saying, okay, this neighborhood and that neighborhood. It is a census block that makes up that neighborhood. And while we would look at that and say the census block between, and I'll use the perfect example with areas that Jay and I represent, he has one street in Quail Arbor, and I represent most of the rest of it. The challenge is putting that street in the district I represent takes one half of one street in Iron Gate, because the other half of that street, that census block, jumps the ditch and hits one street in Iron Gate. So now we've taken a community of interest and split it up again. So this is not, you think, okay, this neighborhood, that neighborhood, we'll just put them all together. This is based on someone designating what a census block looks like. And there's some that are really, block is not the right word to use.
Territory? Okay. Mr. Frampton, is there anything we need to do logistically? I mean, we're going to go forward with the meeting on the 13th because we already have items scheduled, and it's already part of our, it's now a regularly scheduled meeting, so we're going forward with that. It's going to be when we schedule that third reading, but it's got to be no less than 7 days to the minute.
Yeah, for example, if you give second reading to the ordinance in the next several minutes, whenever you're ready for third reading, I'll recommend that that meeting be scheduled at 7:00 p.m.
Okay.
Not
Call the
less
question.
than, not less than 7 days from today's date.
Not less than 7 days. Fair enough. Okay.
Call the question.
Yes, sir. All right. All in favor, please raise their hand. And it is unanimous. Mr. Bailey, thank you very much. Okay, and not a public hearing. We now have second reading of an ordinance to repeal Dorchester County Ordinance 2005-03 as subsequently amended, codified in the Code of Ordinances, Dorchester County, South Carolina, Chapter 2, Article 4, Division 6, Section 2-275 through Section 2-280 inclusive, thereby abolishing the Dorchester County Sales Tax Transportation Authority.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Bailey.
I have some questions. I want someone to explain to me, please, in very detail, and I see the ordinance in front of me, of exactly what we are doing to the West End sales tax people. Somebody, Mr. Ward, can you explain it to me? Somebody can explain it to me in detail, what we're doing.
I mean, I will, or not in detail. I mean,
Beg pardon?
I'm happy to at least give my thoughts on what we're looking at here. At the end of the day, we're going to need to be moving in a direction to build roads in Dorchester County and try to get another referendum passed soon, if at all possible. Other counties do not have a board of members between county council and their road projects. We need to start moving in that direction to be able to set it up to where the county has more direct control over future road projects. Pretty simple there.
Can I stop you right there?
Sure.
So what we're trying to do, so I understand, is to resolve the present board or the commissioners on this commission. That's what we're trying to do. Is that the only thing we're doing, or are we doing other things?
At the end of the day, my position on this particularly is we need to find a way to do a one-penny sales tax referendum next fall, if at all possible, because otherwise we're looking at 6 years from now to be able to build any roads, and this county desperately needs it. In order to do that, one of the things that Charleston, York counties, and other counties have learned from what we did in 2004 is their counties actually manage that. They have staff in-house that do that, and their county councils are much more responsible. There is no third-party board. We need to start moving in that direction so that we can actually actively manage that without that extra layer that just really introduces inefficiencies. It's nothing personal or anything. They've done a good job. Those projects are almost done. The next round of projects, we need to be managing on this side.
I don't have any fault with what we're trying to do. I just want to make sure that we're not cutting off like the projects we got going on now. I asked a question today to somebody about the dirt roads. You know, unfortunately,
They might, yes.
she
Yeah.
and I got the dirt roads.
Sure.
Let me finish, Jay.
Oh, yeah.
Let me finish. We got the dirt roads. So I asked a question about the dirt roads. Well, I don't know, maybe, I don't know, but we're gonna put some roads in. We got a list. When we passed this ordinance many years ago, I saw a lot of people on the idea, we're gonna get you off the mud, and we're gonna get you out of it. But what's happened for the last many, many months, and you all know this, I don't have to go to call the names, not a dirt road in Dorchester County out of this funding has got done because they didn't seem fit to take them up.
Right.
I want to make sure, and in the ordinance, outside the referendum, they list all these roads are going to be done. What's going to happen to these dirt roads?
The way I would see it personally is, those roads are important, and they need to be funded in that next penny when it passes, if we can't get it done
next
this year.
penny?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, because if we don't have enough, we've got to be able to retire this penny, and we can do it by the spring. Otherwise, we miss the window. If we miss that window, I think Mr. Prentice has informed us we're 2025 before we can retire that penny, correct?
Mr. Prentice, too, let me do this, folks. Before you speak on this, too, one other question on this that Mr. Byers is my question on this. So double questions here. In addition to the timing of this, the question would be, can we abolish DCTA through the third reading? I know this is just second reading, and still handle our debt service obligations, because I believe we have 3 scheduled debt service payments on the Berlin-Myers Phase 3. Is that correct?
So there's a couple of issues. We have outstanding bonds, the 2006 and the 2013 series. Those bonds have debt service that's due through 2029. We currently have enough cash in the bank that we were holding for the commitments to Berlin G. Myers project to be able to pay off those bonds as early of May of 2022. We have commitments through the IGA with DOT, tri-party agreement for Berlin G. Myers Phase 3 in the amount of $35 million, and those payments are due, I've been advised, the first of 2022, 2023, and 2024. The first payment is $10 million, and the second two are $12.5 million each. So the funding that's going towards Berlin G. Myers, once that's out the door, you don't have enough money in the bank to be able to pay the bonds off at the present.
Can we administer the payment of those debt services without an entity to do it?
You can, yes, sir.
You
The
can.
bonds are issued as Dorchester County general obligation bonds.
Okay.
It's not so much and I don't want to step on Mr. Frampton here. It's not so much the issue of the DCTA versus not the DCTA with respect to the upcoming referendum, as much as it is the ability to have the funds to pay off the bonds and complete the Berlin G. Myers project simultaneously.
So there's a lot of moving targets here, okay? Let me speak very clearly on one thing. One, from my chair, this is in no way, shape, or form in any way a slight on the board of the DCTA. They've done an outstanding job. In order to be more efficient for the next penny, we just need to do things a little bit better. This starts to clean that up. Personally, we need to get the Berlin G. Myers built. That funding that's hanging out there is the one thing where we've got to find a way to bridge that. And that's really going to take a bigger lift than what we're able to do here. The state has to help us renegotiate the IGAs or something where we can figure that out. That being said, if we can do that, we can do a penny next fall. We can start building roads in 2 years. There's a lot of projects that are coming down from all the federal money that if we don't take advantage of this window, we're going to miss. And if we wait 6 more years, this county becomes a parking lot. So it's just important to start moving in that direction. There's no intent to do anything to try to stop a project or to not get these roads done that you're talking about. If we can get a couple of them done and still retire that penny, that's great. Other counties, what they do is when the projects aren't fully funded and completed by the time that penny runs out, they roll them to the next penny. They continue the commitment, it just needs to go to the next penny, and that's what I would certainly advocate doing, because all of the roads that we're talking about are important. We just literally don't have the ability to build any more right now. And sitting on it for 6 years, I can't fathom that.
Can I ask a question, just kind of related to what you've got and sort of what he said? That's where I thought you were going, Mr. Hearn. Mr. Prentice, so I know at one point in time there was a whole discussion about the collection and the DOR, Department of Revenue, telling us when we had reached our limit of collections. Where are we at in regards to, I guess, once all the stuff that we've got out there, the money in the bank and everything else, how much more room do we have to collect before DOR says, nope, sorry, you can't do anything else? Because that directly affects those dirt roads, how much more we can collect.
The cap.
The cap.
Yeah.
Do we know, I mean, do we have I know that's been kind of a moving target at times.
So back in 2017, we determined that there was an error just on the state treasurer's office report that talked about the quote-unquote cap on collections. It was at $163 million, and that was the sum of the original 22 road project cost in the referendum. The actual cost to administer the $125 million in bonds with principal and interest, plus the pay-as-you-go funding, was more on the end of $300 million. And so we had them revise that cap to a number and approximation of about $302 million. Right now, and I was going to pull it up real quick and I can tell you where we are. Let's see here.
And I guess my question, without getting too exact, is can we get all the roads that were potentially on the list? Or, and I don't know if there was a list of all the roads. I think it was just roads at some point in time. Is that
It's a
correct?
list.
list.
There's a
List of
There's a
22
list.
projects, plus including the dirt roads.
Okay.
I think there's like 4 more dirt roads that haven't been addressed or something like that.
It's more than 4. It's more than 4 dirt roads.
Well, I just, the dollar figure, is that, I mean, is the dollar figure there potentially, and I'm looking at Jason Carher, to collect enough to finish all the roads that are on the list? Because that's important. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
Chairman, I apologize, but.
No, sir, that's all right.
Right.
I'm sorry, sir, I hate to do this to you. It's our YouTube
time-
production value here.
The last time we looked at the complete list, it wasn't enough to pay for all of them, but it was enough to pay for the primary ones that we wanted to get done, the ones with most people lived on. So you're able still to do a few of them, but just not the whole entire list. But some of the roads on that list has no houses either, so keep that in mind.
Okay. I mean, so we could prioritize a couple and then roll the rest to the next penny so that we can get moving on some other roads and put those on the list in the next ordinance.
So I just want to make sure I understand this completely. I have dirt roads that have been out there for years, and we've been collecting this penny for a few years. And I've had constituents to come to me and say, you know, I've been trying to get this road paved for 10 years. You know, the people that's 85 years old, 86 years old, that's living on a dirt road, that probably an ambulance could not get to if it was raining because there's so many, you know, holes and so many, the road's just so bad. Am I understanding that I have to go back and tell these individuals that they got to wait 2 years longer to roll over a penny? That they roads will not get paved?
Not necessarily.
I can't do that.
Because the penny would be next fall, and so it would start the following year.
But we have money that's in there right now.
Sure.
For dirt roads,
So.
millions of dollars,
Yeah.
so.
There's some money in there.
So we're not going to use that money?
We can use some of it, Ms. Holman. I mean, and I can't speak to what DCTA, how they graded, which dirt roads they did and which ones they didn't. Obviously, I'm not that decision maker. My position is going to be, let's fund what we can so that we can retire this penny in May. And we're going to need the state's help. There's no doubt about that, but I believe in our leadership there. We're going to need to be able to retire this penny in May so we can do another referendum next year so we can continue work. Otherwise, we can't do anything except the dirt roads in Berlin G. Myers for the next 6 years. And that personally, I can't live with. We got a whole lot more. There's $1 billion worth of roads this county needs. We got to get moving.
So this referendum, we're going to have the citizens vote for this penny.
That's right.
And it's going to be a hard sell for me to get constituents on this end to vote for a penny if they hadn't seen the roads be paved. So just understand that.
Thank you.
I need my roads to be paved.
I understand. And they will be.
Okay. In the near future.
As near as we can do.
I don't, Mr. Byers, regardless of whether or not the DCTA stands or not, wouldn't be a determinant factor to whether those dirt roads are paved or not.
Well, I'm
That
just.
would be certainly the funding that's available. And per my understanding, what you were saying, Mr. Prentice, is the money that's in the bank and the checks that are being written are covered for the amount for the 78 project and the Berlin Myers project, or to be written, is that correct?
It's really, go a little bit further, and maybe Mr. Carey wants to come back up. It's really 2 separate issues, I guess. You've got
Yes, he does.
the issue of the funding and being able to pay off the bonds, and then you've got the issue of the DCTA. And
Right.
the other issue, as I understand it, is the county has a LPA designation from DOT for small projects only. We would need to obtain an LPA designation for the larger projects, and currently the DCTA holds that designation, and that's how Highway 78 Phase 2 A and B are being administered, as well as Highway 78 Phase 3 whenever that project comes to fruition. So
But
the
those are the only
LPA is what would be needed to be able to functionally dissolve the DCTA and to have everything that we currently have now. in terms of administering projects. The bonds are a completely separate issue, separate and apart from the abolishment of the DCTA itself.
Here's something else I think I understand, and you guys might have to explain this to me, but with the DCTA currently, they pick what roads are paved, is that correct? They
There's
put
a
them in- they
list, there's a priority
They put them in a
list.
priority list, correct?
Right.
Now, if the DCTA is abolished, you'll be the one that'll have control
She
over.
can't do that, it's against the law.
Huh?
She can't designate roads.
No, she can't designate it, but
She can't
it'll-
ask for roads to be done. That's what happened with the CTC. That's why we formed the CTC, for the legislature was getting the money to pave the roads. And we were telling them where the roads. Attorney General says, elected official can't tell.
right, but they can schedule, there'll be a schedule from the highway department, correct?
I don't want her to get in trouble.
What would end up happening, the way Charleston County does things, my understanding, and meeting with their Director of Public Works, is county staff or consultant, Davis Lloyd, whoever it is, gives a list of priority projects to vote on, and their council, they hit the major ones in the referendum, then they have smaller projects that come up annually that they do in their referendum right now. As it stands, our current project list is 22 projects. That's it. We don't get any option to look at anything else that may or may not change. This gives some flexibility in the future. I mean, this just starts us down the road of trying to
But you know,
start headed that way.
Mr. Chairman, you know, I kind of know my constituents, and I got some sitting out there right now that's probably saying they don't want their road improved. Use the money that we're trying to improve their road on these dirt roads. I mean, I can just tell that they're gonna be telling me that when I walk out the door. So if we're gonna pave that road, we're gonna need to pave these roads as well. I mean, we want their votes when it's time to get the penny again.
Mr. Chairman, let me bring this thing to closure for me. I still have some concerns. What effect will this do with the funding from the county on the Bernard G. Myers Parkway?
As of now, nothing.
None.
Yeah,
Nothing.
right.
Nothing.
Nothing.
And that's really not the intent, George. I've heard that
No,
rumor
no,
too, so.
I know that. I
Yeah,
asked
okay,
the
okay.
question. That's all I
Yeah,
asked.
Sure.
And,
I've heard all kind of rumors too, Mr. Byers and Mr. We've heard the same rumors y'all heard.
and Mr. Bailey, again, you know, Mr. Prentice indicated that the 3 payments are scheduled, so we're committed to make those payments. So it will happen, and this doesn't subvert, that. I'll say this, Mr. Byers, I think procedurally, second reading makes sense. It's good to tee this up and have it ready as a tool. Only thing I will say is before we vote on third reading, before we get there, let's make sure we've got a plan, we've got a transition.
Yes.
Big time.
Yeah.
And
No, we've still
so-
got a lot more work to do.
Yes, sir. And again, it didn't, second reading is second reading, but it's also a process, and it gives us the ability to, make that transition, and helps us to plan. And to that extent, it doesn't bother me. And again, no slight to the members of the 1 cent sales tax committee, particularly since my appointee is sitting right there in front of me there. So, but no, they have done a great job. And it's something that I think with the new penny and with the dramatic increase in revenue from the time that the penny was first initiated, it probably requires a different approach to how we do it going forward. But
Do you mind if I follow up on that? Because I think you brought up a great point, and to be a little faux pas and speak after the chairman.
go ahead, sir.
So this was done in 2004, correct? If I'm not.
Yes, sir.
Is that, so 17 years ago, that's a long time. And so I think Dorchester County is either the first or the second to really do this. And other counties, we've gone to York County and some other places, that they've since learned, just better practices based on that. This is really just learning from the fact that they've learned from us to do better practices. There's no need keeping the status quo just to keep the status quo. When we do a new penny, we're going to need to be a little bit different and a little bit more active in the management, because it's just the best way to practice governing on that. That's my position. So this just sets us up for that. Thank you for that. Sorry.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I know it's not known the procedure, but we have an individual standing out there.
Well, we're not in a public hearing. We're actually in the middle of discussion of a vote. So from a matter of precedent, I don't want to open this up.
Okay.
I am sorry. Sir, I do apologize. Be happy to, after we finish the main meeting, I'll listen to your comments, but preferably not right now in the main meeting. So I'm sorry, sir. Thank
Call for
you.
the question, Mr.
Yes, sir. Thank you. All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
Okay, and it is Mr. Bailey.
No.
So 6 in favor, 1
As
opposed?
of right now.
Okay.
I don't think so.
All right, thank you very much. And let's see, correspondence.
No correspondence, Mr. Chairman and Council.
Okay. Next, council members' time. Mr. Byers.
Oh, yeah, something a little more fun. Hopefully this won't take nearly as long. I believe we've got some, so I've got time to be able to recognize some folks from the Career and Technology Center and just some students, and my iPad is down, so if somebody's actually got a list of the students they can pass me, I would love that, because it's not in my paper agenda. Thank you. So a couple of years ago, most of you know, or some of you probably know, I'm chairman of the County Parks and Rec Commission, and so just working with Eric Davis, our former Parks Director, and staff, we talked about a lot of different things. And one of the things we started looking at is, when you're building a park, you start looking at buying these picnic tables from all these prefab manufacturers, and we started looking like, man, good Lord, picnic tables, $1,500, how's that? And I remembered that a lady had recommended me years ago that she'd gotten this picnic table from College and County Career School, and I ordered one of those things at one of my offices about 18 years ago. We've still got it, and that thing's built like a tank. And so I told Eric, I was like, hey, we got a career school, and they do great stuff. Let's call them up. Let's have them build all the tables. We'll get the kids involved. And Bobby Bear, I think he reached out, and Mr. Villaponte, and really just got the kids to do that. So when you go out to these parks, you're going to see picnic tables that were built by your kids, your students, people in the community to be a part of this. And they're probably going to end up doing some other things like benches and stuff like that. I think it's just a great opportunity. So I really appreciate y'all doing that. And this is just an opportunity to recognize the kids and the leadership there for what they did. And I just want to say thank you. I'm excited about that because this is about the community, and you get out there and you start seeing, kids will be able to go out there. It's like, hey, your dad, and one day they'll have kids sitting on the picnic table that their dad built, in the park. And I think that's pretty neat. So Mr. Bear, Mr. Villaponte, thank y'all for doing that. And I'm going to read out publicly. Are the kids here or any of the students, did they make it? You got the instructor? All right. And hold on, that's, all right. Mr. Crawford?
Mr. Crawford.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Crawford, back there. All right, I appreciate you. So thank you very much. So, out of curiosity, how long did it take y'all to make each table? Long time? So, yeah. Yeah. I appreciate that very much. Did they enjoy doing it? Awesome. I appreciate that. Thank you for doing that, Mr. Crawford. I appreciate y'all's leadership. Let me read out those student names as well. And we also had a bunch of Boy Scouts that have helped out in various ways. So I'm just going to read out a list of names just to publicly recognize them. And at some point, what I'd like to do is get them at the park as a group, and let's get a picture with them at the tables. I'd really like to just get that and get that recognized on our county social media, if that's okay, if we could do that. And here, yeah, you can see thank you. I'd ask first, you see the tables there underneath some of the picnic shelters. That's the Ashley River Park shelter. Those things are just going to look great. And so I'm looking forward to that. So when you get out there and you get to enjoy the park when we open it up after the first of the year, just remember that your kids, your students built that. Those young men and women in the career school, they did a great job. So without further ado, so the names of people we just want to recognize: Mr. Bobby Bear, Benjamin Crawford, the instructor. Thank you, Mr. Crawford. And the students: David Wilbur, Colt Savage, Jermaine Hayward, Jalen Hightower, Alex Avila, Joshua Parker, Christopher Alfaro, Brenda James, Alexa Connard, John and Vera, Bethany Newell, Riley Fisher, Peyton Harbison, Philip Robinson, Sawanda Terrell, and then the Boy Scouts and volunteers that have also helped us with the projects: David Wilbur Jr. and Sr., Curtis Wilbur, Robert Wilbur, Connor Jackson, Lane Justice, Glenn Justice, Sully Epps, Reese Epps, Emily Wilbur, Inez Wilbur, Brandy Wilbur, Billy Leopard, Andrew Hotpfizer, James Hotpfizer, Joss Opold, Cole Schumann, Aaron Opold, James King, Brian Hamilton, and Yasmin Hamilton. So again, thank you all very much. We really appreciate it. And once again, I certainly commend you for doing that. So thank you.
Thank you,
Mr.
Mr.
Chairman?
Myers. Yes.
Oh, I said thank you, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman, sorry.
thank you. And Mr. Myers, thank you. And Mr. Villapantu, Mr. Bear, and Mr. Crawford, thank you for being here. We really appreciate it. And you'll remind us of this in May, won't you? Yes, sir. We'll put the pictures back up. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it. Next, we have guest time. Mr. Daniel Prentice, our County Deputy Administrator / CFO. Presentation of October 2021 monthly budget report.
Good evening. Yes, October budget report, running 2 weeks behind on this one just based on how early in the month the 2nd November council meeting was. So for the general fund for the month of October, total budget as amended is $72,051,000. Revenues year-to-date, $6.6 million. Expenditures year-to-date of $21.9 million. To note there, we've made our second quarter outside agency payments. No other notes on the revenue side. Capital fund, total budget as amended of $6.7 million, revenue of $228,000, predominantly property tax collections, and expenditures of $1.8 million. Majority of expenditures are vehicle acquisitions and public safety, as well as transfers for our capital improvement fund for facility repairs and renovations projects. Continue to provide you with the American Rescue Plan update in here. No major changes during the month other than just some reimbursable items that are posting, as well as the appraisal for the drug and alcohol facility on Midland Parkway. We'll show the posting of the expenditure there in the December report, as we're planning to close on that purchase later this month. Fire fund, total budget of $8.3 million, revenues of $338,000, expenditures of $2.2 million. Running below budget there, no notes to share. Water and sewer fund, total budget of $44.8 million, revenues of $12,095,000, and expenses of $11,093,000. Everything's running under budget there. No other notes to share on that one. Water and sewer impact fees, total budget of $13.9 million, revenues of $3.3 million. 11.9 million of that total budget is use of fund balance associated with carryover from prior year projects, and expenses of $1.3 million. Stormwater fund, budget of $4.4 million, revenues of $250,000, and expenses of $596,000. Solid waste fund, budget of $8.7 million. Of course, both solid waste and stormwater fund were amended based on the budget amendment for the new fees. Total revenues of $317,000 and expenses of $1.5 million. That concludes the budget report, and do not have capital projects tonight. Should have that at the next meeting or for the first of the year.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And next, County Administrator's time. Mr. Jason Ward.
Mr. Chairman and Council, we have an opportunity to recognize some employees who completed a 12-week program through the National Association of Counties for High Performance Leadership. I believe all four folks who completed that are present, and I have their certificates as well. If I could, I'd like to recognize each of them, and if council is so inclined to have a photo with them, I would appreciate it. The first is our Register of Deeds, Margaret Bailey, High Performance Leadership. She completed the Master Certificate.
You want them to come up one at a time? All right.
We'll get all of you up. We have your certificates. The second is our Public Works Director, Jason Caraher. Again, has completed the High Performance Leadership Master Certificate. The third is the Dorchester County Water and Sewer Director, Mr. Larry Harper. He also completed the High Performance Leadership Master Certificate. And then finally, our Human Resources Director, Tammy Thompson. completed the master certificate for the High Performance Leadership Program. The second thing I wanted to do is kind of take a moment and describe this program. There were Fortune 500 CEOs, leaders in human resources, and the late General Colin Powell, who was involved in this program. And this was an extraordinary program that NACO put together. And I think at this point, we've had a total of about 7 employees and our elected official included in those who's gone through this program. As a person who's gone through this program, I can tell you it's exceptional, not only because it causes you to really, one, think about other ways of doing things, but you also have to put together your own plan. And that particular plan, I think, causes you to think about things like you bring the weather. And that means that a lot of times people may think of themselves as being thermometers, but in fact, they're thermostats. If they're good leaders, they set the temperature. And there are other things like that that I think many of them, given the opportunity to share, they will recognize the benefits of participating in the program. And it's a very rigorous program. It was 12 weeks, daily homework. You had live sessions every week. And I think each of them had an opportunity to present to a much larger cohort with several people. I don't know about this time. When I had the opportunity to go through this program, Ms. Reinertson, I know there were over 600 participants from across the country. So with that being said, I'd ask if they could come forward for a photo with County Counsel, and congratulations.
Again, congratulations to those who were recognized, and this might be an appropriate time, if you so choose, to go home. You've earned it. Thank you for coming.
Everybody take note of who's committed and who's not.
Have a good night. Thank you. And Mr. Ward.
Mr. Chairman and Council, the next item I have for your consideration is the third reading of an ordinance to adopt the Ridgeville Givens Growth Management Plan. I ask for your approval.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Ms. Hallman.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to request to come back with this at the next council. I'm not prepared to vote on it, and I don't want to abstain. I want to be able to go back and look at it in much greater detail.
Okay, we do have a request to postpone to move this, and I'm trying to remember how we've done this in the past.
few minutes.
Man, I wish I could have heard what you just said, sir.
Motion to defer.
Sounds really great.
Whisper softly, friend.
I wish I could say it again. Sounded pretty good.
Oh, it did.
It'd be a motion to defer consideration until the next council meeting, which would be December 13th.
Okay, so we do have that motion. Do we have a second? We have a second and another second. All right. Any discussion?
Is this already under pending ordinance doctrine, or?
Yes.
It is? Okay. Yeah, I mean, so we're gonna do it next Monday? Is that, okay,
Yes, I promise to have it completely read by then.
right, okay, no problem.
Any other discussion? Okay, so does this supersede our main motion? Or do
It
we-
would.
Yes. Very good. Okay, this will supersede the main motion, so the motion to, what he said, moving it to the next meeting.
Thank you.
All in favor, please raise their hand. We've
Aye.
got, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those opposed, it looks like 2. Thank you very much.
You can hang it up. I ain't voting for y'all, ever again. You should have voted for that.
Is there a third?
You should vote for it. What are we gonna do?
I thought Mr. Byers raised it. Mr. Byers, just to clarify, I'm sorry. Do you vote in
I was
favor?
calling for a first down.
No.
I was voting in the affirmative for next week.
Okay, please stop with the painful football analogy, sir. Okay, thank you. Mr. Ward.
Mr. Chairman and Council, next item I have for your consideration is first reading referral to the Planning, Development, and Building Committee for a public hearing and recommendation regarding an ordinance to amend Dorchester County Zoning and Land Development Standards Ordinance Number 0413 as previously amended with respect to Article 6, Use Group 15C, Business Professional Services Institutional, and Article 25, Definition of Terms, with the purpose of this amendment is to add homeless shelters as a permitted use group in 15C and establish a definition for said use. Ask for first reading and ask that you refer this to the Planning Development Building Committee.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Can we defer this one until next week?
All in favor, please raise their hand. That appears to be unanimous.
Excuse me. The next item I have for your consideration is first reading and referral to the Planning Development and Building Committee for a public hearing and recommendation regarding rezoning request number 842 for Ronald Gray Jr. to rezone .77 acre located at 119 Twin Lake Drive near Somerville, TMS number 143-02-00-017 from single-family residential manufactured housing district R1MA to single-family residential manufactured housing district R1M. Recommendation of both staff and the Planning Commission is denial. However, I ask that you refer this to committee for further consideration.
So moved.
Can we get a second?
Second.
Thank you very much. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand. Let's see. Mr. Bailey, sir? Okay. It appears to be, are we 5 and 2 again? So it appears. Okay, 5 in favor, 2 against. Mr. Ward.
Next item I have for your consideration is first reading referral to the Planning, Development, and Building Committee for a public hearing and recommendation regarding rezoning request number 847 for G. Reed Banks to rezone 1.52 acres located at Mellichamp Road near Somerville, TMS number 129-00-00043 from commercial light industrial to industrial district. I ask for first reading and referral to committee.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
And it is unanimous. Mr. Ward.
The last item I have for your consideration is request for approval of the Dorchester County Vehicle Accident Review Board, and I will ask that you reinstate said board.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and several seconds. Any discussion? And this, again, is for reinstatement of this board. Okay? All right, all in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
Aye. And it is unanimous. Mr. Ward, thank you very much. Next, committee report. The Water and Sewer Committee met at, well, not quite 5:45, more like 6 o'clock, but we had one item on the agenda. It was a request for approval for agreement to release Dorchester County Sewer Service Territory located off Droz Road to Somerville Commissioners of Public Works, and it was unanimously recommended.
Turn on my microphone. You've heard the vote, or you've heard the recommendation of the committee. All in favor?
Aye.
We are, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Byers.
Mr. Chairman, before you move on, I need to back up if that's okay. I need to ask a question for some clarity, because I was distracted looking at something on the item for TMS 143-02-00-017. That vote-
6D.
Yeah, I don't have the item number in front of me on this. That vote was 5-2 to deny or approve? I apologize.
The recommendation
Recommendation
was to send it to the Planning Development and Building Committee.
Okay,
So-
to send it to PDB?
Yes, sir.
Roger that. And Planning Commission unanimously voted denial on 7-0 on that. Okay, I'm going to go with changing mine to 4-3, please. Can I do
So-
that, John?
Do we need a motion to reconsider since the motion has already been voted on?
It would be if he wants to change a vote.
All
that
right,
was
I'm going to motion to reconsider, please, since I voted in the affirmative.
Second.
Okay, we have a
All right.
motion and a second.
Thank you.
And
Mr. Byers, I appreciate you bringing up that clarify. I was under the assumption we were voting to deny. So,
Apologize.
the
I will
same, no,
clearly state I was slightly
Okay,
distracted
now
from that.
just a point of clarification, would the motion to be reconsidered to be to retake the vote or simply
It's a motion to reconsider the vote.
the vote?
That's
Here we
what
go
it is.
then. Okay, then the door's been opened.
Well, has a vote been taken on the
Yes.
motion to reconsider yet?
So we have a motion, we have a second, we're in
Okay.
discussion. So this would be a motion to reconsider. All in favor, please raise their hand.
So we're
This is
voting on the motion to
To
reconsider.
reconsider, yes, sir.
Thank you.
All right, and we have 1, 2, 3,
Reconsider.
4, 5, 6, Mr. Bailey.
Reconsider.
So it is unanimous. Okay, we're now going to come back to the,
You're fresh out the blocks on the matter.
thank you, sir. So we are back to 6D. And folks, the motion, the recommendation was to refer to PDB. So that was the recommendation. And what is the pleasure of council? We'll take a vote on it. All in favor of, no?
Motion, yeah.
You're
Was it a
right.
motion for first, I'm sorry.
You're right. Go ahead.
Was the motion to give first reading and referral or merely for referral?
It was a motion for first reading and referral.
That's what I thought. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So at this point, so
Start all over.
we're back to the recommendation. So, all right, do I hear a motion?
Motion to deny?
Oh, I'll second that.
yeah.
So the motion is to deny first reading.
Thank you,
And it has
sir.
received a second.
All right, we do have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman, the only thing I would say is, and the reason why, and because I had read this, the reason why I was opposed to this is basically is you're chopping up lots smaller to put more on it to create higher density in an area that already they can put
Correct.
a mobile home on it now. They just can't put the density that they're looking for on that. And that's the only reason why. I mean, we've worked with trying to control density at some level over and over again in the county. And again, I'm in all of these cases, I'm empathetic with the folks, but ultimately there's a whole lot more that get impacted when we start cutting big property up into little property and putting more and more cars on the road. So we have to pave more roads and we don't have enough money to pave those anyway. So in any case, so that's.
Point well taken, sir. Okay, any other discussion? All right, and again, this is a motion for denial, and, I'll just say this is tough, because in 21 years, it is not my practice to vote for denial on first reading. It's been rare, and although I see the wind blowing very heavily in that direction, so all in favor, please raise their hand.
in favor of voting for denial.
That is correct, sir.
Make sure I got my hand on the
Indeed.
right one here. Thank you.
All right, are we down the line?
I go-
It is unanimous.
Get it over.
Mr. Byers, thank you for cleaning that up. That was painful. Sorry
I
about that.
apologize for making us make untasty sausage in public.
No, it's better to do it now and get it taken care of.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, sir. All right, and sir, on this one, nothing on, do we have any?
Mr. Chairman.
Okay, all right.
I don't want to throw any Robert's Rules of Order, but the right procedure, Mr. Byers, is, Mr. Chairman, I'd like to vote, being that I vote on the prevailing side, I'd like to reconsider my vote. That's all you got to do. And you have that right.
Thank you. I appreciate your mentorship as always, Mr. Bailey.
Try to help.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. Next on the agenda, appointments to boards and commissions.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, excuse me, I'm about to go to sleep over here. I'd like to make an appointment, Mr. Mike Manning, who's retiring from the Sheriff's Department, serves on the grievance board. And Mr. Cobra James J. DeLong has asked to be put on it. I'd like to appoint Mr. Cobra James J. DeLong to the grievance committee.
Second.
Here we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
It is
Aye.
unanimous. Where's my notes? Any other? Oh, there it is. Okay. Folks, bear with me a second here. That's cruise. Okay. Okay, yes. We have not finished this one over here. Let's see, did we? Okay, we have, thank you very much. And then, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. All in favor, please raise their hand. Again, thought
Aye.
we'd done that. I apologize. It's unanimous. And we are still in need of appointments for Board of Assessment Appeals. And is anybody jumping on this? And Ms. Langley, it is me, Mr. Crosby.
I've got an appointee, but I just have to confirm.
Okay, all right. And Mr. Byers, all right.
But I'm good, right?
Apparently so. Yes, ma'am. I thought I was, but I was actually rejected. It hurt my feelings, so.
Teacher's pet.
Okay. All right, anything else? All right, sorry about that. Next, county attorney's time. Mr. Frampton.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. At this time, a public hearing has been scheduled to be held by council regarding an ordinance authorizing the execution and delivery of a fee in lieu of tax agreement between Foundry Dorchester Commerce Center LLC, which was previously identified as a project name was Project Jump, whereby the county would enter into a fee in lieu of tax agreement with the company, which would provide for fee payments in lieu of ad valorem taxes, together with special source revenue credits. I request that the public hearing be held.
Okay, at this time, we will call the public hearing to order. Does anyone wish to speak on this particular project? And in keeping with every other public hearing, nobody has decided to speak. We'll close the public hearing. Mr. Frampton?
Mr. Chairman, I request third reading of the ordinance for which the public hearing was just held.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Sir?
I'm trying to understand these specifically, and I hope John can maybe shed a little light on this, because as I read this, we're doing a fee in lieu of taxes on spec buildings, if I'm
That-
reading that correctly. So we're doing a fee in lieu of taxes and not creating, I guess we're possibly creating jobs, but we know we're creating buildings. I understand that a little bit more. Normally, we don't just, have we ever done a fee in lieu of taxes on just an empty building?
We did one with respect to the speculative building on Deming Way, on Highway 78 and Deming Way. That
Yes.
building, the second half is being constructed at this time, which was May River
Correct.
Industries.
And private investor,
Correct.
correct.
That's the only other one I'm aware of.
Mr. Truitt, anything else? If you want to speak, please come up, but.
Mr. Chinnis, the guidance we've given them is all private developers, in order to promote speculative building development, which we're in short need of, is that we're willing to do a very basic 6% fee in lieu of tax agreement for any of them. That does a number of things. One, for the building itself, it really doesn't change the amount of taxes they're paying, because they get to build them would be at 6% anyway. It locks the millage. It does lock the millage over time, which helps a little bit, but that's not significant. The other thing it does is make sure that they don't pay rollback taxes for property that may have had an ag exemption. The other thing they think it does, which, I'm happy to play along, but they think it helps them recruit companies in there, because they can say there's already existing fees to move the tax agreement in place. However, chances are county council may do something more or not, depending on what that tenant ends up being. The other thing it does in a small way is let some of the smaller manufacturers take advantage of a fee on the tax agreement. For example, when Dennis Eagle moved in that, the Eastport building that we did, their investment in the machinery and equipment, which they were a truck manufacturer, so it was something that we wanted. Their fee, their investment amount in machinery and equipment was not big enough to have a fee on their own, because they were leasing space. So they were able to affiliate, again, it came back to y'all, they were able to affiliate with that fee, that base fee on the building. This one is a little different in that there's a special source credit, which is not usually done on a space. But there was a prior agreement that predates me, predates any of y'all, with the owners of that property in the Queen Industrial Park, where they allowed the county to dig a ditch across the property, with the understanding that when they requested it, the county would pay to fill the ditch back in. So we were trying to honor an agreement to fill a ditch as a part of this site plan that dated back to, I think, 1994. That was in the original board documentation. I don't have that with me. So this was a one-time special source credit to pay, I think it was $300,000. $325 for the cost of filling the ditch, which of course is not as simple as just piling dirt in a hole. It's having to make it where it can be built upon. That was trying to honor an old agreement with the qualified that were the landowners of that property in Queen Industrial.
Thank you. Any other questions for Mr. Truitt? Any other discussion? Thank you, Mr. Truitt. Any other discussion? All right. Okay, and hearing none, all in favor, please raise their hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Mr. Tennis is a,
No,
okay.
I got a hard time. Yeah.
Okay, 6 in favor, 1
But it'll
Uh,
opposed.
pass anyway.
Mr. Frampton?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Next item on your agenda has been scheduled a public hearing regarding an ordinance authorizing a fee in lieu of tax agreement between Dorchester County and Bid Group Technologies U.S. Incorporated. This was prior to this time identified as Project Steel, to provide for payments of fees in lieu of ad valorem taxes together with special source revenue credits. I'd request that the public hearing be held.
Okay, at this time, I will call the public hearing to order. Anyone wish to speak on this?
Mr. Chairman,
Sir?
I'll just do it now instead of after we get a motion. I'm very familiar with this big group. It came here about 9 years ago on a wing and a prayer. Mr. Carpenter with the Department of Commerce brought him here. He met Mr. Brian Fair in Germany. And they have, as of right now, they employ over 300 people. And one of Mr. Brian Fair's requirements is if you're going to work for me, you're going to live in Dorchester County. You'd be surprised how many people actually came in from other places, live in Somerville. Very few in St. George, I can tell you, because sometimes I sell them a house. But anyway, this is something, the first time they've asked for anything, and I surely support what Mr. Truelock is presenting here tonight.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak? Yes, sir. And again, this is regarding the bid group, sir.
No, I got a question.
Okay, sir?
I got a question. Now, I heard about all the roads that are building everywhere. We have a road in Texas community. If a lady live on the road, she 95, 3 years old. If come a big rain or whatnot, the ambulance can't get to her house. Now you building roads, but have people. Why'd you send me a tax form to pay tax if we can't get service?
Okay, do me a favor,
That's
sir.
in the Texas community. I can show it to you tonight if you will go.
Address. Mr. Britt, can we have your address, please?
637 First Texas Road, St. George, 29477.
Thank you, sir. And was this the comment that you wanted to make earlier?
That's the comment I want to make.
Okay, sir. All righty, sir. Thank you very much.
All right.
Okay. All right. Does anyone else wish to speak? All right, hearing none. We'll close the public hearing and
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second. The third reading, Mr. Chairman, of the
Okay.
ordinance upon which we just had the public hearing.
okay, we had a motion and a second, and any discussion?
This one's an easy one.
Thank you, sir. I knew that was coming, sir. And, you know, obviously, Mr. Bailey, to your point, I think when they first announced it, was it 100 jobs? But
56.
56, thank you,
Remember,
sir. I could not
56.
remember. And before they even got going, they were already expanding and have just continued to do so. So we're very happy to have them here. So thank you. Any other discussion? All right, all in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
All right. It is unanimous.
Missed that, Mr. Chairman.
Oh, I see. what-
There you go.
I'm just making it hard tonight, that's all. One time a year. Sorry.
Don't even have an orange tie.
I'll behave.
Jeez, you're killing me, man. All right, Mr. Frampton.
Mr. Chairman, at this time, I'd appreciate council's consideration of going into executive session to discuss two contractual matters. The first being the potential purchase by Dorchester County of certain real property. The second contractual matter being dealing with Pine Hill Acres, Pine Hill Industrial Park. And lastly, a matter to receive legal advice regarding potential opioid litigation settlement. Appreciate consideration of an executive session on all three items.
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
And it is unanimous. We're in executive session. Folks who are leaving us for the evening, please drive carefully. Thank you. And if we don't see you at the next meeting, Mr. Frampton, would you please bring us out of executive session?
Mr. Chairman, executive session, council discussed the previously announced 3 items, but no action was taken.
Do I have any motions?
Mr. Chairman, I move that county council authorize the county administrator to execute the authorization form in regard to the negotiation and settlement of the opioid litigation with Janssen Pharmaceuticals and the 3 opioid distributors, as discussed in executive session.
Do I have a second?
I second the motion.
Okay, thanks. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
It is unanimous. Any other motions?
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I'm going to move that we would defer third reading of an ordinance to amend the official zoning map of Dorchester County, rezoning the parcels 129-11-11-001 through 017, 129-11-12-001 through 012, and 129-11-13-001 through 015, 129-12-06-001 through 017, and 129-12-07-001 through 16 from industrial, residential, to single family. I'm going to move that we defer that until a later meeting.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
Okay, that is unanimous. Any other motions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I motion we adjourn.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All in favor, please raise their hand.
Aye.
We are adjourned.
Later.